So the City of Johannesburg says it is positioning itself to be less reliant on Eskom and is seeking other methods to produce power. City Power, the energy division of the Metro, this decision was made in a bid to curb the costs of load shedding. This is the second city in the country to make this decision. You'll remember back in 2019, the City of Cape Town approached the courts to allow it to obtain electricity from independent power producers. Let's get a bit more information. Isaac Mangena is the spokesperson for City Power, is in studio with us. Isaac, good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
So this is obviously following in from the City of Cape Town. What is the latest? What is your idea with all of this?
Look, we're moving from the premise that load shedding has had a very serious impact to our revenue. And I mean, it has had a very serious impact on the people, the community, the residents, businesses as well, even yourself and myself. So it can't be business as usual. So as an entity, as a business, we thought it would be important that we start planning properly so that we're able to cushion the residents of the City of Johannesburg against the impacts of load shedding. We lost, as City Power, we lost about 60 million in the past 3 months from October to early January during that last bout of load shedding. That's a lot of money. That's only City Power, but if you take it to the residents themselves, how much they've lost in terms of the food that actually gets rotten when electricity is not there, but also the businesses, especially small businesses that do not even have a luxury of buying generators to ensure that they help themselves against the challenges of load shedding. So we thought we really need to start planning ahead as the city to ensure that we deal with this and also cater for our future developmental needs as the City of Johannesburg.
I'm going to go into a little bit of depth. I just want to linger on a little bit about the experience that Cape Town's going. I mean, you've seen the City of Cape Town actually going to the courts to try and allow them to do what you also want to do. Do you think it's going to be an easy road ahead for you to try and pass this by?
Look, part of our planning and future strategy is basically to look into the alternatives that are out there. The IPPs is one of those alternatives. And we are glad that, in fact, recently President Ramaphosa and even the ANC at its NEC Lokgotla, they eased up on municipalities self-generating and also allowing them to basically start talking around the alternatives, what they need to do to ensure that they are self-reliant. The reliance on Eskom is no longer sustainable, as you know, and we have already been told that load shedding may be with us for a long time, especially if this unbundling does not happen as soon as possible. So that is something that we have always watched closely, the case between the City of Johannesburg, the one that is in the courts now, to see where it will go. But we really welcome that, and the IPPs are one of the ways that we think we can be able to deal with our capacity constraints.
As you mentioned, this is costing a lot of money. I mean, you yourself just emphasized how just in 3 months City Power lost 60 million. That's on top of the losses that you reported in June last year. I think that was sitting at around about 399 million. And I think the picture for your annual result coming out is going to be even worse. So things need to be done, and very, very quickly. When we talk about alternative energy, I know that there were 3 suggestions given actually. Talk us through what it is that you're looking at, and ideally how we can alleviate these electricity pressures and the lack thereof from Eskom in Johannesburg. To
talk about that 399 million, it was the whole financial year last year.
Indeed.
And that is the money, half of that money, in fact, if you calculate from the 3 months 60 million that we spoke about, half of it would have came from the impact of load shedding, and it's really a lot of money. So some of these alternatives that we are looking at includes your rooftop solar panels, also the gas supplying gas into households, and we are also looking at the battery storage facilities, which will help as in purchasing electricity when it's cheaper, especially during downtime when we don't have a lot of traffic, and be able to use it later. So we have a feasibility study that, in fact, the results are supposed to come this week, which will guide us as the city to say which kind of alternatives can we implement where and how. So that is what we have embarked upon for the past year, in fact, in this feasibility study, to see what is it that we want to do. But the current administration, especially MMC Mangena, is also looking, he was also suggesting us thinking around building our own power station, so that the city can be able to protect itself against the impacts of load shedding. Building a power station takes about 7 to 10 years, so it's a long term, but then with the alternatives that I just spoke about, it is something that we can actually be able to implement in the next financial year if everything goes according to plan.
But the problem is it's very, very expensive, and with these losses that you're talking about, and I mean, you know, to break it down, these losses that you're experiencing are real, and it's power surges where substations, transformers explode because of the power surges when it's load shedding, then it suddenly comes on. That's not to mention the illegal connections that carry on, the billing chaos that goes on in the city of Johannesburg. So there is so much happening right now. Where would you find the money to go ahead and start planning for these things that you're talking about, which are essential, and yet the money seems to be a problem?
Yes, indeed. The money is a serious problem. Our revenues have taken a serious knock, obviously. But we are looking at other alternate funding models that we can look into. The public-private partnerships, we are looking at that. In fact, there is a feasibility study to look into that as well. But also the grants that we are getting, and of course the money that we get through from the city. That is taxpayers' money. But we really need to come to a point where we are able to collect revenue, so that we are able to fund some of these developmental projects that we are thinking of. We also still have to maintain our aging infrastructure. We also still have to also build another bulk infrastructure that will help us in terms of dealing with some of these issues. So yes, indeed, the funding is still a problem, but we are confident that with this new study that we have already embarked upon, on other financial streams that we can look at, we will be able to get money to fund this. But also we are also having dealing with our issues of collecting revenue, especially from customers that have not been paying, especially even the industry. We have identified several of them that we really need to start talking to them to say, you need to pay us so that we are able to sustain our operations. Otherwise, we might as well go bust.
Yeah, indeed, and that is a big problem. Let's talk about non-paying residents and the situation with them. Electricity has not been supplied to certain areas for months on end now, and purely because of non-payment. How are you going to get around that? I mean, the chances of them ever paying are very, very slim. So what is the solution?
In fact, the chances of them paying are not really slim. We're going to be strict in this regard. I mean, we have already started. We're going to start cutting people that are not paying electricity, because it's very expensive a business to bring electricity to the houses, and people are not really paying. So part of what we intend to intensify is to basically start cutting people that are not paying us. But also we have realized that there is a problem with the and we've embarked on an audit to try and see how many people out there are still owing City Power, so that we're able, especially the businesses, so that we're able to start knocking at their doors and get the money. We know of the areas that are not really paying for electricity, including, of course, parts of Soweto, which is supplied by Eskom, by the way, not City Power. But we in the city itself, we have this amnesty period, amnesty program campaign, in fact, that we have started for those people that actually owe a lot of money, to say to them, come through and explain yourself. What is it? Why you are not paying for electricity and other services, so that we can negotiate and perhaps give you a 50% break there. But then with the promise that you will start buying electricity and you will start paying for the services. So that is one of the ways that we're dealing with this.
So all of these ideas on the table, these are the plans. When are you going to start implementing? When are we going to start seeing the change from the absolute reliance on Eskom to saying, you know what, Eskom is just but one supplier, but we're okay without them? When can we start seeing that happening?
Look, in fact, already plans are in motion. You'll remember that we get 90% of our electricity from Eskom. 10% is coming from Kelvin, that's the substation, power station east of Johannesburg. So what we are doing now is also, we've been talking to Kelvin to say perhaps you need to increase to the maximum of your license. Now they're giving us about 250 megawatts. They can actually give us 600 megawatts. That will actually try and offset some of the challenges that we have with Eskom in terms of load shedding. But we also, as I said, the feasibility study into the alternatives, the findings are going to be given to us this week at the end of January. So from there on is the case of us now going to start with the procurement and other processes to test this new alternative, so that we can, at least in the next financial year, which starts in July, be able to budget properly ahead based on what we are, the alternatives that we are getting.
All right, we'll leave it there for this morning. Isaac, thanks for explaining. Thanks for coming in and updating us on the situation. This is City Power looking to invest more in alternative energy and find other power suppliers other than Eskom. And as you heard, the devastating financial effects on just City Power, not the rest of South Africa, but on just City Power in 3 months, 40 million rand lost due to those bad months of load shedding towards the end of last year. Isaac Mangena, thank you very, very much for joining us on the program. Right, the time just on